everybody, say hello to Nobody Asked TV, aka Chandler. Everybody say hello, hello. Chandler, how's it going? How are you?
Everyone. It's me, the famous singer AJR. Full name.
Mike's so excited.
Jandy Randy.
Mike's punching the ceiling.
Best music.
That's amazing. So I kind of have to explain to everybody like how you got here, because we were just talking about it in the private waiting room. I was supposed to be in LA this weekend, and so I wasn't going to have anybody on because I just wouldn't have the time to like get everything set up. And somehow you must have known that, because Chandler dropped into my DMs with like probably one of the best elevator pitches I've ever heard. And he was like, hey, you know, I love the show. I can bring this and this and this and this, these stories. Here's the homework. You let me know, like, if you're interested. And I didn't have anybody lined up, but I love content. And so I was like, can you be on this week? And he was like, yes, I can do that. So we got him going. So I'm excited you're here. Thank you for giving me free content and doing all the work for me. I appreciate you for that. And so you've got some really interesting stories that I've been kind of poking at for a while, that I kept them on the back burner because I knew that there would be a time and place that we'd be able to talk about these. And so this is the time and the place. But first, I want chat to kind of get to know you. So you are a teacher in your non-Twitch world time. So tell us about that. Tell us like what grade you teach, all of those works.
I teach upper high school math mostly algebra 2 and 3, which for the older people in the audience, algebra 3 isn't actually algebra 3. If you had to take trigonometry and calculus in high school, they've improved it for the kids. They cut both classes in half and stuck it into one, trying to lower the amount of upper div math you have to take. I'm super behind it, but I think I'm a very lucky man. I genuinely just really, really love my job, to the point that if I weren't doing this tonight, I would be going to bed like excited to go back to work tomorrow. And I recognize that is an incredibly rare thing, and I'm just super thankful for it.
Yeah, of course. That's amazing.
Yeah,
so
I love teaching these kids. They're great.
So
they're great.
you do stream right now, you don't stream right now. Talk to us about that relationship. Are you streaming actively?
I do. And I am streaming actively. That was actually one of the things we kind of talked about just in the waiting room, like getting on here by just kind of, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I have wanted to make content with like you, Barry, Nandre, Bobby, people like this for a while now. But
you're in.
One
you're
of the
here.
like, things I told myself was I was like, okay, I need to prove I can actually do this fairly consistently before I want to reach out to especially like you, because this is your full-time job.
Sure.
This isn't just a hobby for you. Like, and I want to respect that. So I told myself not to like reach out about anything serious like this until I proved that I can stream at least fairly consistently during the school year. We're going into our third week. I've still had a few streams. At this point, it's like once a week, and it's just kind of whenever I can fit it in. I coach an esports team. I try to go to a lot of after school stuff. A lot of my kids are on the volleyball team. I have a lot of kids in band. They play at football games. So I really do try to go to as much of those things as I can. Mm-hmm. I'd say in my Discord, like, hey, I'll let you know what night I'm free this week, and we'll do our Pokemon Nuzlocke for a couple hours, and then I'll go to bed.
Okay. And then so you had mentioned to me that you started streaming during the pandemic, yeah? Or sorry, started teaching during the pandemic.
Yes.
Okay. I want to know about that a little bit, because that's a unique experience.
So my very first year teaching was the 2019 to 2020 school year. So COVID hit during spring break of that year.
Wow.
It was 3/4 of the way through my first year. And it was really weird at first. We got halfway through spring break, and that's when lockdowns kind of started to happen. And it was mostly a joke. Like, we were just kind of talking with our teacher friends and family and stuff like that. Like, oh, do you think we're going back Monday? Or, oh, I think we're going to get a couple days off. And so be like, oh, I think we're going to take a whole week off. And then we just never went back.
Yeah, I did that with haircutting too. I remember the moment I had because I was cutting hair near a college campus, and I had one of the professors in my chair, and I was cutting his hair, and we were kind of just talking about the COVID thing. And I was like, ha ha ha, do you think that the campus is going to shut down? And he said, yes, it is. And I was like, oh my God.
Like, oh.
Yeah. Cause I was like, wait, really? And he was like, yeah, we're shutting down already. We just haven't announced it. And at that moment, that was the moment that I realized like, oh, this is real shit. Like, this is not just like some weird, crazy little news thing. Like, this is some real shit. Okay. Another question for you. Are there skills that you feel like you learned teaching remotely during the pandemic that have transferred over to you teaching in person now? Like, how do you feel like the translation of that worked out?
It was very lax. We didn't have like daily Zoom calls with our classes and stuff. I don't think I ever had a Zoom call and that students were required to be at. That first kind of hit between spring break and June. That was when COVID first hit. That was when before everything got all political and complicated. The vibe was mostly just, all we know is that this is serious and we don't really know much else. The kids didn't come back. About 2 weeks after spring break was supposed to end, they said, okay, we sent an email out to the teachers. We're going to bring y'all in like groups of 10 or 15 to get like your computers and things like that. And we'll figure stuff out from there. And the vibe from that was, okay, we're basically going to lower the standard for like pass fail as much as we legally can to just try to push the kids through that have put the work in for the half of the semester. So they implemented rules like whatever a kid's grade was going into spring break, that was the lowest you could give them on an assignment that they did and turned in. So if I assigned a test and they took that test and they submitted it on time and their average at spring break was an 85, lowest they could get is an 85. Even if they got every question wrong, they even spelled their name wrong on the paper, they turn something in, that's the lowest they can get.
Interesting. I think that that's a good thing to do because from what I understand from like the other people I've talked to that are teachers, home lives can be wildly different. So when you have the students in your classroom, you're kind of controlling the atmosphere that you're teaching them in. But as soon as you send the kids home and you're having them do, the same thing in their different prospective home lives. Yeah. It seems like most teachers had that in mind where they knew that they were dealing in a different territory.
Absolutely. And it became much less about ensuring they learn new things and more just trying to look out for them. Me, especially having mostly upper high school. Most of the kids I had were the oldest kids in their family, or at least the oldest ones living with their family. So their responsibilities weren't just now this weird kind of homeschool spinoff. They were largely responsible for taking care of their kids, of their siblings, because daycares weren't opening. Some jobs you could go back, some jobs you couldn't. And honestly, the jobs that you couldn't, that parent had to go find something else. So the general rule set was more of a vibe of like, let's try to find any excuse we can to just give these kids credit. So because there's bigger things to worry about right now. I tried to take that a step further. Anything a kid turned in at that point, I just made it 100. I just made it 100. I thought, okay, if you're like dealing with all this and you're dealing with like taking care of your 4 little siblings and you still have time to actually do a math worksheet and turn it into me, you know what? If you had an 88 at the beginning of spring break, I'm going to try to help you push that into an 8, because in 4 years, when this is all over, if this doesn't earn a GPA bump, I don't know what does. The unfortunate side effect of that was the one thing they made very clear at the rules is we were not under any circumstances to tell the kids what the rules were, specifically with how lenient we was going to be, because it didn't want to take an advantage of it. Unfortunately, that led to it essentially leaking, but
they weren't supposed to know, so naturally they were going to know.
The rumor came that the lowest grade we could give someone was whatever their previous grade was, aka we can't fail them. When in reality, we were still instructed, if something's assigned and nothing is turned in, no contact is made, that's still a 0.
Was that across the board of a lot of schools, or was that your specific? Yeah, that was most. Okay.
I think it was pretty across the board. I know I can think of like 4 or 5 kids off the top of my head that unfortunately had to repeat that class because they listened to that rumor, even though I told them, I was like, look, I literally assigned 1 like front back page per week. I put it up on Monday and I checked it on Friday. No more than like 15 problems. I told them like, look, if you just do like 1 or 2 of these and put your name on it, you could keep your like 75 that you had. And they're just like, oh no, I know you can't fail me. I'm like, no, I can. And I have to if you don't do anything. Please don't screw yourself over like this. But kids.
Okay, going off of the school thing, do your students know that you stream? You kind of mentioned that they do. So that is my worst nightmare. First of all, my nephew is like, he's old enough to be on Twitch, but I've told like him and my half sister, like, I don't want to know he's in Twitch. I don't want to know, like, don't have him say anything. So I want to know how you kind of like maneuver having these high school level kids potentially in or around your stream world.
Well, there's only, I can think of 3 or 4 that watch it pretty actively. Of those 3 or 4, 2 of them have graduated, 2 of them are current seniors. When I first found out that like someone in my chat was one of my students, they mentioned their name. And I think they like asked what the homework was or something just in chat.
No.
But it's fairly harmless. I was like, what? I was like, oh, okay. I just had one of my mods like time him out. And I was like, let's not talk about it. Mostly worried like, do not call me Mr. Last
You have
name,
like a channel point redemption. Like, what is the homework? Yeah. I'll give you 1 free answer for 1,000,000 channel points.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that. But this is the reason because I totally get that it's like most people's worst nightmare to have like any kids in their life find out about stuff like this. But this is the actual reason that I don't mind it too much. Because when I went back to school, I like pulled them out of class and I was a little stern about it. I was like, hey, that was kind of not cool, dude. Like you cannot go on and like put my name on the internet or anything like that. It's pretty serious. I didn't like yell at him or anything, but it was the tone I'm showing you right now, like very stern. This is kind of serious. And this was like a junior and he just looked like really sad all of a sudden. And he just said like, I'm sorry, I won't ask about the homework again. I just wanted to watch because I found it and I thought it was really funny. Oh. And it like broke my heart. I was like, oh no.
Oh no.
That's really sweet.
It's one of those
I thought
like,
they were trying to troll.
I'm not mad at you. I'm just disappointed. And that hits him.
Yeah. No, I fully expected him to like have come back and told a bunch of his friends and just walked across like, oh, I hear Mr. Chandler streams. That's so cringe, bro. But no, he didn't tell anyone. He just found it and he stayed for like 2 weeks before I even found out it was him.
He's a fan.
He just liked watching it and he thought it was funny. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like chastising this kid.
Okay,
that,
so
like was cool enough to not dox me and just likes it. So
that's tough. But I mean, what are you gonna do? They're gonna find like kids are like women on the internet. They will find the darkest part of the internet. Like if it's there, if they want to find it, like they're good at it, they'll do it. So going off of streaming, you used to stream on Mixer.
I did.
I want to know first off what it was like streaming on Mixer, and also to piggyback off of that, what do you think that Mixer could have done to survive? Like, what do you think it was doing right?
Mixer could have just tried and they would have survived, to be honest.
Yeah.
They had some big names. They just didn't put any. Yeah. Like, if y'all think Twitch doesn't care about adding any sort of features because they have a monopoly, Mixer, I'm not going to say Mixer was worse about that, but Mixer was the one in the place to challenge that.
Sure.
They were the ones that were supposed to actually push to that, and they had an opportunity to actually do that, and then they just didn't.
Yeah, because they got Ninja, right? Ninja was the one that went over, and I remember that was,
Ninja,
that put
Shroud
them
went over.
Yeah, Shroud. I forgot about Shroud, too. So what did you like about, was there anything about it that you liked over Twitch, or no?
Oh, absolutely. Mixer was growth easy mode, because here's the thing. Aside from those two, nobody moved over.
Got it.
Mixer wasn't actually trying to put into it. I actually started streaming like a month before the pandemic hit. So I had just like a little bit of content. And it came from a buddy of mine that actually we both stream on Twitch now. And he recently got partner. We used to make YouTube videos together, like in college and stuff. And we were talking that like December. And he's like, I actually started streaming. I'm like, oh, on like Twitch? I was like, I tried that once or twice. I had like 1 or 0 viewers and Ashley was in there the entire time. So I don't know how it is. And he's like, no, man, you got to go to Mixer. I'm like, what's Mixer? He's like, it's smaller. And here's the thing. Ninja and Shroud are there. But if there's a lot of people that watch, none of the actual streamers are over there. If you have a face cam and you're not just absolute doggy doo-doo at talking, you will gain a following because there's no one else there to watch. I was like, oh, so it's easy mode as far as growth's concerned. And this is where he told me, he's like, yeah, and dude, I've made some money. And I'm like, what? Because we were YouTube. On YouTube back then, you had to get like $100 in ad revenue just to get a paycheck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, YouTube, I'm at that point where it's tough, but.
Yeah, I think in my 4 years of college videos, I got maybe $12 that I never saw because it was never 100. But he's like, I got a $5 tip and a $10 tip last week. I was like, what? That's cool money? And I just had it over there. And now it's so funny to think that that's like such a large amount of money to make for streaming or YouTube or whatever. Yeah. And I went over there. I just had a face cam and we played Minecraft a lot because that was the thing to play on Mixer. Just existing there, you gained like 20 to 30 followers every time you went live.
Do you, what kind of games were you streaming on Mixer? Like what games were really popular around the time that Mixer was hot?
If you're not Mixer or Shroud, it was Fortnite and Minecraft. That's one of the things we liked about jumping over to Twitch. There's a much larger audience for more things, but those are pretty much the only things you could play on Mixer for growth. We did kind of have a meme game. Our meme game was Ticket to Ride because Mixer did actually have like a category for it. Okay. And we called it the Train Gang, #Train Gang. We get like little train whistles, and we just like take Ticket to Ride super seriously and play with the homies. But we were always the literal only people streaming in that category. With like
that's
maybe
interesting.
Like of the 2 or 3 of us, maybe 40 to 50 viewers, to the point that on multiple occasions, Mixer staff came into our chats to make sure there wasn't anything like sketchy going on.
Right.
They thought it was so wild that someone was streaming Ticket to Ride.
Interesting. How many, so when did Mixer go down? Do you remember?
Mixer went down that summer. It would have been summer 2020.
Okay.
I was actually live playing Minecraft with friends when they made the announcement.
Really?
A buddy of ours.
So you got dumped into Twitch. You didn't step away. You got dumped into Twitch, as did a lot of people.
As like Mixer refugees.
Yeah.
It was a rough couple months.
Yeah.
But we were
I remember it was right before I started streaming, because there was a bunch of people that were basically starting over. Like, you know, they had brought some people with them, but they basically were starting over.
It was weird. Our buddy came in to chat to tell us, but it was always that guy that like trolled. So none of us believed him at first. It took like 30 minutes of him telling us for someone else to come in and us believe it was true. Like imagine if Nandre walked in and said, hey, Twitch is, they're going to reduce the cost of a sub to $3. You wouldn't believe him.
Yeah, right? I mean, you'd have to kind of like read it from 3 different sources and then see it from actual Twitch itself. That's incredible. So did you ever stream Smash Bros on Mixer?
Maybe only once or twice. This is a good segue, by the way.
Yeah, I was gonna. You know where I'm going with this one. So
I know exactly where you're going with this.
So I know that you coached an esports league, high school esports league, and it was Smash, right? I have a question that might be a lot of other people's question, but I don't know. I don't know the difference between Super Smash Bros. And like Melee. I don't know. Everybody talks about it. I don't know what that is. So can you just, before we start talking about Smash Bros., can you just clear the air with what the fuck Melee means? Because this is one of those I've waited too long to ask.
Yep, I got you. Super Smash Bros. Is the Elder Scrolls. Melee is Skyrim.
Okay.
Smash Bros. Is the series. Melee is a specific game in the series. It was the one for the GameCube. It's one that has a bit of a cult following because it's, as far as the fighting mechanics go, it's the most aggressive one. That's the one that even as new versions of the game have been made and stuff. With pre-competitive Smash Bros, there's always 2 scenes. It's whatever the current game is, which on the Switch, it's Smash Ultimate, but Melee has endured. There's still very much a very large competitive Melee.
And is that the one that you coached?
I coach Ultimate, which is the Switch one.
Okay,
I coach Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Mario Kart 8.
Before we start talking about that, I want to know how that idea kind of like blossomed. Like, was it an idea that you had? Did one of your students bring it up? Like, how did that come to be?
It was like a week before school started, and my principal called me at like 9:30 in the morning. It woke me up. I was like, what's up? And I thought I was in trouble because we have a new principal now, but this principal did not like me. I was like, how am I in trouble before school even starts? Okay, hello? And he was like, Mr. Chandler, we've got a lot of students interested in esports. Do you know what esports is? And I'm like, sure, I'm familiar. He's like, is that maybe something you'd be interested in coaching it? Because I want to be honest, I have no idea what that is. But the kids want it. If we paid you, is that something you might be interested in? And I gave 2 caveats. I gave one, because I was familiar with the esports scene kind of in our district and state. I gave 2 caveats. One, I asked like what games were playable. And I said, I want to be able to pick. And he said, the company does like 8 or 9 different games that you could choose from. He's like, I know that League of Legends is the most popular one. He's like, but if you don't want to do that one, you don't have to. You can do something you're more familiar with.
Okay.
And I said I didn't want to just essentially babysit a video game club. I didn't want to just make an after school thing that like, anyone can come to and you just come and you play games and it's whatever. I was like, I would be interested in coaching an esports team, but I want to coach a team. I'm going to pick a team, like a JV and a varsity. I'm going to hold tryouts. I'm going to pick the best ones
like the sports team.
We're going to actually try.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to be a coach. I don't want to be a babysitter. He's like, sounds good to us.
Okay.
Can you do it? And I said, yep.
So your principal called you. They said, hey, we've got a thing that a bunch of people are interested in. Do you want to be a coach of this? Where did it go next? Like, how did you go about doing it? How did you go about collecting your team?
As soon as I got back to school, the rumors were circulating that we were going to start an esports team. And our middle school actually has a League of Legends team.
Wow.
And I think the expectation was that I would have a League of Legends team.
Wow, I'm glad that you didn't.
My
That's
general
an idea.
response was kind of cry about it. I don't know anything about League of Legends. We're doing Super Smash Bros. I have all these people like, man, I don't even play Super Smash Bros. I'm like, well, that's what we're doing. Just kind of hoping, like, I had in the back of my mind, like, okay, this is not only our first semester, but I'm probably one of maybe 5 adults in this building that even knows what esports is and would take it seriously. Because I live in the deep South right now. I fully expected to just be the butt of all the other coaches' jokes, but I'll get to that in a little bit. I thought, okay, I looked at the games. None of them I was super familiar with. Smash Bros was the one I knew the most. So I went with Smash Bros. I thought, okay, I'm not that great at this game, but I understand it well enough that I feel like I would be a decent coach. And I just held tryouts. I said, all right, come after school Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to put you on 1v1s and see if y'all are any good. And then
did you 1v1 them, or did you 1v1 them like each other, or like how did you?
I 1v1'd a couple of them.
You did, okay.
A couple of them. I whittled it down to like 2 or 3. I'm like, okay, these are the 3 best of the bunch. I didn't know where they stacked comparatively, but I was like, okay, I know how good I am. I was like, you, best of the bunch. I want you to play me right now.
You get in here.
Yeah, I was like, I want to play you right now. And everyone was like, oh, he's going to play the coach. Because these kids probably think I'm like a god. And
Sure.
No, this guy beats me like 3 kills to 2 to 1.
Wow.
I was like, okay, good. So our best guy can beat me because I wasn't that good at the game at the time. I was like, okay, this is hopeful. And then Tuesday comes and there's these 3 kids. They're going to come up a lot in the esports story. So I'll just use their like gamer names to not dox them, because 2 of them are still minors. So that's probably for the best.
Yeah.
Cheeto, Joy, and Elka, like ELCUH. That was
We're used to gamer names. This is easy.
Oh yeah, it was so good. And these 3 come in and they are just absolutely wiping the floor with anybody that goes against them. They are absolutely insane.
Gamers.
So I'm watching to the point that like I'm trying to keep my composure, but like all the kids, like their jaws are just dropped, because Joy especially, oh my gosh, he plays Pichu and he plays him in a way that is absolutely insane. So I'm trying to like just keep my composure. Like, okay, I can't let these kids know I have any favorites, but I'm like, taking notes and stuff. And he just 3 stocks. So 3 stock, that's a Smash term for like a shutout.
Thank
basically.
you.
3 kills to 0 kills. But like he wins a match and I'm like covering my face with the clipboard and looking at him like,
holy shit. He's a prodigy.
Yeah. So for your own knowledge, the way Smash Bros kind of works is it's kind of the opposite of other fighting games. Other fighting games, you have a health bar and you're trying to whittle down the health bar, right? Smash Bros, you're on platforms, they're floating. You start at 0% and it's essentially percent damage. The higher your percent, the further you're going to fly when you take a hit. And if you go completely off stage, then that's -1 life. One game, you have 3 stocks or lives. The last one that still has stocks remaining wins. So it's instead of trying to whittle down a health bar, you're trying to build up someone's percentage so you can hit them with some moves that'll like send them flying. That's how Smash works.
I've played it a little bit, but I still want that in there because I haven't played it enough to explain that to somebody else.
And getting a 3 stock is essentially, it's really difficult because let's say you're up 2-0, that person starts a fresh health at like 0%, but if they've been doing damage, you're already at a really high percentage. So you essentially have to work through their final life while at the point where if you take a hit or 2, you will probably die. So to actually pull off a shutout, even on someone that you're a lot better than, is really difficult to do. And these kids are just absolutely slaying it. So I'm like, okay, I get to the end of tryouts. I'm like, okay, so there's my varsity team right there.
Awesome.
They get like, okay, I couldn't touch them. They were wiping me out in like 30 seconds flat. I was like, okay. My worst JV player would still beat me pretty consistently.
Okay, got it.
Probably like 70% of the time.
I don't know if you want to disclose this. And I am from Oregon, so we had like 4A, 5A, 6A schools. Can you disclose generally, were you pulling from a big pot of kids, or was this like, no, okay, so this is small? Because I grew up in a small town, so I understand like you wouldn't have a whole lot of people to pull from. Okay, so not a lot of people to pull from.
We are, I think we're less than 900 students.
Wow. Okay. Got it.
So
that's
pretty small.
My school had about 400, 500.
The categories go. Yeah. I think we're 4 or something.
Cool.
We're pretty small, which made it a bit difficult because since esports is such a new thing and it's not quite regulated yet, there aren't those categories for esports. So we were fighting for the state championship. We were against any school that had an esports department.
Wow. And was that often? Was that a lot or not really? Okay, got it.
Yeah, I found throughout the season that it seemed like I was one of like 2 or 3 schools doing it this way, treating it like an actual sport. And most of these schools, it was essentially just a gaming club.
Wow.
Some of them did very well. We went up against a school. I've talked to the coach before. His esports department is 68 kids.
That's
all
a
of
lot.
those are starters. That doesn't
different
include,
games or all
different games.
Different games.
They had
okay.
5 Smash Bros teams though.
Wow.
They had 5 Smash Bros teams. Not to spoil the end, but our varsity Smash team, my suspicions about them being awesome were good, and we are actually state championships.
Okay.
We're the state championship winners in Super Smash Bros. And beyond that, that was the first semester our state even had a state championship. So we're not just Smash Bros state championships. We're the first ever Smash Bros state championships in our state.
That's amazing. So I have some pictures that I'll show in a second, but I want to walk through the prep. So you're prepping for esports state championships, right? You're prepping for all of this. I want to know how often you practice. I want to know, do you have the same qualifications for your esports team that other sports would have, like grades? Like, how tough were you on what they were doing outside? Like if they got caught doing something bad, did you say you were off the team? Yeah. Like how parallel was it to the other sports teams that were going on in the high school?
That kind of stuff is pretty parallel because it's not just a coach rule, it's a school rule. As a coach, we can kind of set our own standards, but there is a bare minimum. Like, if a kid gets like suspended or whatever, it's a minimum in-game suspension. I think every day is like a week/game they can't play. So if you're suspended for 3 games, you're on the football team, you can't play 3 games, something like that. I didn't have too much of an issue with that because it was such a small team. For context, one team is 3 players. You get 3 starters. So the semester we did Smash Bros, I had 3 varsity starters, 3 JV starters, and 2 substitutes.
Okay.
So it was 8 kids.
Okay.
8 kids. And I knew them pretty well. It didn't take long because there's only 8 of them. And I stayed pretty on top of them. As the biggest thing I kind of let them get away with was I practiced once a week because they offered me $500 for the semester. So
that's not nothing.
I wanted to, I enjoyed it and I really wanted to do it, but I didn't want to do the math in my head on what the hour rate was and make me feel sad. Yeah. So I was like, okay, it's going to be like a 2-hour a week thing. That's reasonable with how much they're paying me. Plus, again, I didn't really have high expectations. It's our first semester. That I had no reason to believe that we were even going to make playoffs, let alone actually win the state championship.
Right.
To the point, I learned that the state championship was an in-person event after semifinals.
Yeah. I remember you being a part of the community and telling us about it. I do remember that going on and being like, I've never even heard about this at the high school level. Like, that's amazing. First of all, how did when you go to state finals, like I only did one sport and it worked completely different than every other sport. So do you go compete at tournaments? Are they like, how do you do it? It's a tournament style, I assume.
Essentially, it's such a small thing. And again, it was the first year. They only had the actual final match between us and the next best school actually play at the venue. Me and that coach and another coach, that basically the 3 best Smash teams in the state. We've been trying to convince basically the state athletic department to have at least semifinal games also be that same day in person because it would draw a bigger crowd. There'd be more to watch. It'd be a big spectacle for the kids to come to. First time actually doing that, it made perfect sense that it was just the finals. But every game leading up to that was virtual. We just played from the school. So we won our semifinal, which we did not expect to win because we were up against the only team that semester that beat us. They beat us 5 kills to 4. It was interesting because, like I was saying, the one thing I kind of was a little lax on, we did have practice once a week. My varsity guys were not the most punctual people on practice days. Part of it was they're high school boys and that's how it is. But I do know at least one of them had a job outside of school and they all rode in the same car. So I was trying to balance. I'd never been a coach before. I was like, okay, I don't want to just let everyone get away with everything, but I'll make a compromise.
Got it.
They 9-0'd their first game. As in 9, basically.
Wow.
Each of the 3 players won all 3 of their games because their sets are best out of 3. Yeah, absolute wipe. So I made a deal with them. I was like, all right, you know what? I won't bug y'all about not coming to practice until you lose. Fair enough. Because they wiped the floor. And then they missed practice. And the next week they came in and they 9-0'd again. I was like, okay, You guys might be awesome. And to be honest, y'all clearly know more about this game than me. I won't get on to you until you lose.
Sure, there's only so much you can coach them at. It's mostly just practice.
Yeah, so what am I going to do? I'm going to make them call out of their job to come to a practice.
Yeah, you could have said just like, go to each other's houses, go practice, go play Smash Bros. Like, you guys will figure it out.
Yeah, plus they have like LAN cables at their house and faster internet. At their level, they're going to get the best practice by just playing online in ranked mode, because the ranked mode will put them against competitive people. Even scrimmaging other schools was proving to be, not that much practice for them.
Yeah. Imagine a scenario where you have like a sign-off paper that you send home with them, and you're just like, okay, I need your parents to sign off that you played Smash Bros for an hour. What a world.
I didn't do that. I did send them with a note that I signed, like that had my actual number on stuff. I was like, listen, give this to your parents. I'm not going to like bug y'all or get into your personal business, but this is just for you to know for yourself. If your parents are people that when you get in trouble, the go-to punishment is to ground you from video games. I need you to show this letter to your parents and have them call me so I can vouch for you, because they're not going to believe you. Let's be real. They're not going to believe you. And say, hey, this is an actual sport that they're a part of, and I do actually need them to practice this specific game. This is me telling you, please don't take that from them. And I haven't had any issues with that.
They're like, my kid's been acting like an asshole, and they're getting grounded all the time so that they can just play Smash Bros. Is this a strategy? How is the esports team seen from the rest of the community? Like, was it considered legitimate? Like, were the other teachers kind of in a weird spot with it? Like, how did that go?
I actually was completely surprised at the response. I kind of alluded to the fact, I was like, okay, I was mentally prepared to just get verbally abused by like the football coaches, the baseball coaches, but that did not happen. For the remainder of the semester, they didn't lose a game until the last regular season game. So they had definitely made playoffs, and they lost their last game against that team that we eventually went against semifinals with. The moment that third game was over, I could see in their eyes that they were angry. And I thought, I was like, I don't need to tell them.
Interesting.
They're going to go home and they're going to grind so hard. Because it was the last game of the season, we saw in that instant, we looked at the bracket for the playoffs, and I said, guys, if we keep going, we're going to face this team in semis. And I could see in the back of their minds, they're like, all right, say less. We're going to be ready.
Yeah.
I knew, I was like, they're going to let that fuel them. They're going to be fine.
These pictures you sent me, were these at the state playoffs?
This is at state championships.
Okay, we're going to jump over here real quick because you sent me some pictures. I put the most recent ones in there. You had jerseys.
Like, yeah, this actually, those are not our school jerseys. Like I said, the semifinals were a Thursday night. We won that game, didn't expect to. That coach emailed me and said, hey, are we going to see you on Tuesday? Because they're doing the state championships for this and Rocket League, and our Rocket League team actually made championships. So are you going to be there? And I was like, what?
Wow.
They're like, yeah, it's in the city. That's 4 hours away. Didn't you know about that? And I was like, I thought it would be virtual like all the rest of them. So I had to scramble that weekend to find like a van and get all these forms together. I went on Discord. I was like, added everyone. I'm like, guys, we got to go to the capital of the state on Tuesday and fight this school that has 70 kids in their esports department. 20
a van to get them to the tournament, right? That's what you're talking about, like to get them there. Okay, what's happening in this photo?
We didn't even have jerseys. We borrowed shirts from the football department that had like colors and our little school logo.
Oh, they look like
under because
gamer jerseys.
But like we gotta look like
you gotta look like a team. School. That's awesome.
Yeah, we get there. The owner of this place says, "Do y'all not have jerseys?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What sizes are y'all? We'll sponsor you." And he gave all of us free jerseys.
Wow.
So we could look cool and shot.
That's awesome.
So this is Cheeto. He named Falco and Luigi. And this in this moment, he was up 2 games because the finals were best of 5, not best of 3. And I remember exactly what I'm telling him. His second game, he didn't win by nearly as big a margin as the first. I could tell he was getting nervous. I was telling him essentially, take a deep breath. He's probably going to switch characters. Because another thing for you to kind of know about Smash, it's also kind of a game of rock, paper, scissors. There are characters that are good against some characters and some that aren't. You could be a really good rock player, but you'll still lose to a half decent piece of paper.
Okay,
right?
Sure.
So I was essentially telling him, like, look, they're going to switch characters, which means they're going to switch play styles. Don't go in super hot. Hold back, play a little defensively for that first kind of life, especially. You're up. They have to win 3 times in a row to take this from you. And I could tell the pressure was on. He was also the second player. So if he won this game, we were state champs. Like by 6-0. This was the opportunity for a full shutout. So I told him essentially, hey, hold back, take a deep breath, see how he plays with whoever he's switching to. Wait until you know what you're getting into before you go in for the kill. And that's exactly what he did. And he clutched it and we won 6-0.
This
is before.
Yeah, I was going to ask. This looks like, are they practicing?
Yep, they're warming up.
Okay, cool. I mean, I don't know if you want to like say what's happening here. It's pretty apparent. They're warming up. They're focused. It's funny. The look on their face is focused.
We were up against a team we hadn't played, and it was from that school that has 5 Smash Bros teams, and this is the one that made it to finals. So we're like, okay, so this is the best 3 out of like 60 people they have. We should be a little sweaty. Yeah. On the left, that's Cheeto. He's graduated now because of his performance in this state championship. There was actually a talent scout there for our like biggest state university. They offered him a $30,000 scholarship to play for their college
team. My God.
And this boy turned it down.
Okay. Tell us about that.
His dad owns like a construction company in the area. He's going to go to a trade school to learn how to like weld and operate heavy machinery. Good money in that. And he's going to take over the family business. Totally fair reason.
Yeah, that is fair. But man, what a decision though.
We're good friends outside of school now that he's graduated. I'm never going to let him forget that he was.
I was going to say, I hope that it was his choice. I hope that was his choice. Okay. That's.
I can't knock it because that was an 18-year-old just doing a smart thing.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. What a, I mean, if anything, what a fun experience to have had that offered to you at all.
And honestly, that's what he said. He was like, Coach, honestly, like coming and doing this and winning 6-0 at state championship, that checked the box.
Yeah, that is what an experience. Okay, so you won state championships. So tell me about that. Tell me about how it felt. Tell me about like the general vibe of your team, like the emotions you guys had when you won, like, relive it for us a little bit.
These boys are such boys. I love them. They're such goobers. So at the top, that's Joy. He's the Pichu player. Cheeto is definitely the best player of the 3. It's a 1v1 format. He ended the whole year with a 92% win rate.
Wow.
92% of his 1v1 games. His postseason win rate was 100%. Every postseason and championship game was 2-0 or 3-0.
Holy moly.
Absolutely insane. Joy, though, the guy at the top, whose arm, fun fact, this is a yearbook photo. I cropped it where I did because his hand's doing that.
That's funny. You'd never know.
He found me. He's like, "Oh, Coach, you saved me from getting in trouble." I was like, "Yeah, I got you, man. Don't worry. Don't worry."
Oh, that's great.
He's a Pichu player. He was the most entertaining to watch, but he was definitely the one that like the nerves would get to the most. And we found out day of that the order was going to be randomized and he had to go first. He had never gone first before. And one of my like proudest coaching moments is like the 2 or 3 hours leading up to that, trying to help him like calm down and like letting him know that it was going to be okay. Because I knew that if he got in the right headspace, he was going to clean house.
Sure.
He got up there and you could tell he was nervous for like 30 seconds, took a little bit of damage. And then it like switches on and he just demolished.
Yeah, I got in the zone and just went.
The scout asked me like if he was graduating. I'm like, he's only a sophomore. Yeah. He's like, well, tell him to call me.
I mean, he'll be better by the time he's graduating. That's amazing. Another question, were these guys friends with each other before the team? They were? Okay, I was going to ask, they probably would be real good buddies after.
Apparently, they've just been playing Smash together for like 10 years.
Wow.
It's just been their go-to thing.
I bet that was so cool. They still talk about it. They will talk about it forever, probably the rest of their lives. I want to ask you, as the coach perspective, to get a little mushy, like, how do you feel after you did that? Tell me about like the emotions. Tell me like if it changed you, like going into next season, like what you want to bring with you to the table, like just on a personal level, what did you get from that?
Honestly, it just was another experience on top of like a long list of experience that make me love the job so much. I don't know. Like, I hope you can tell just by the way I'm talking about
totally.
These kids. I really do love these kids. And yes, I like math. And I have the whole meme, like if someone mentions a number, I'll fly into a Twitch and like, did someone say math? But it dawned on me, even just in the last couple months, the reason I've gravitated to math so much isn't necessarily because I like it. It's because I find it easy. It makes sense to me. And it clicked with me. The reason I'm teaching math is because it's a means to an end. Because it doesn't take a lot of mental energy for me to figure math out, I'm free to spend that on just investing in these kids. Coaching a Smash Bros team and being humble enough to recognize that senior taught me more about the game than I taught all of them combined. Honestly, I'm a better coach because of them. They're not better players because of me. I have to be 100% honest about that. I just add that to other things I've done. Just going to one of my kids, she's on a volleyball team, and I just go to a lot of their games. And she really appreciated that, to the point that the next semester, a bunch of volleyball kids ended up in my class, and they were excited to take my class because they had seen me at those games a lot. A couple of my kids that were really close with a student that I was really close to are on the band. And I tried to be as much of their stuff as possible. I even surprised them by driving to their state championship to watch them perform, which was like a 6-hour drive. I don't think any other teachers did that. I won't get too deep and too mushy gushy. But if you've seen my stream, I have a couple tattoos on my arm. A couple of those, and one of the reasons I've invested so much in this job is one of them is just the name Chloe. Chloe was a senior last year, a kid that me and my wife were very close to, who unfortunately was killed in a car accident last September. And as I was mourning that and kind of processing that, it dawned on me that what I wanted to do about it was just be there for these kids and invest into them. Because the interesting thing is, at the beginning of that semester, she wasn't even supposed to be in my class. Chloe found me like a week after the semester started and asked me for help getting her back into my class because she didn't like the class she was in and she really liked it. And she just wanted to be in here because she liked me as a teacher. And I did that. I took the time out of my break to go with her to the counselor's office. We tried to get it all switched and stuff. Whenever she came in, she would ask me about just advice, for life advice. She got a job offer she was considering switching to. She was considering dropping an after-school activity because she wanted to spend more time with her friends and stuff. And I had all those conversations with her. And as the morning process kind of switched back to everyday life, it dawned on me that I get to live the rest of my life incredibly thankful that I can look back on those like 2 weeks that I had with absolutely no regrets. I can't look back and think, oh man, if only I did this differently, or if only I spent a little more time here, or if only I paid a little more attention here, because I did that I did that the entire time. And I thought, okay, I hurt right now and I really wish I could do that again. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do that for the kids that are here.
That's awesome.
And this is just, sorry. It just not to like diminish the Smash Bros. Or the fact that these kids are absolutely insane. And they're probably 3 of the 5 best players in our entire state, but it really is just another piece in the puzzle as to, I don't know.
No, it's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I think the importance and the gravity of having a teacher that genuinely cares about their students is life-changing. I had an experience recently where kind of right before I moved, it was about 6 months before I moved here to Arizona. I was in my local like grocery store and I was in the electronics section and I was having just a bad day, a bad week. My brain was just not giving me the right chemicals. And I remember I was standing in the electronics aisle looking for something for stream. I hadn't showered in like 3 days. And I was just kind of like, just having a day. And across the aisle, I saw one of my favorite high school teachers that I hadn't seen since high school. And I said, hey, I don't know if you remember me. My name's Sandwich. My name is Sam. I graduated 2013. I don't know if you remember me. And he was like, oh yeah, like, are you still doing this? Like, I saw you were like, he named off all these things that I had done after high school. He asked if I was still doing things that I was doing in high school. First of all, the emotion of him remembering me was just like, oh my goodness, like, because I was so like unmentionable in high school. Like I didn't have older siblings. I didn't have younger siblings. I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't a really good kid. I felt like I was so lukewarm that it was like, how would he remember me? And we stood and we talked for probably like 40 minutes. And it literally like changed my entire day or two, just because it kind of brought me back to being in high school and being in the presence of these teachers that genuinely did care and want your future to be better. And it's, you remember it forever, especially if you're a kid that your home life might not be privileged enough to have the experiences or the resources that other kids do. Having that adult in your life that is willing to go out of their way to, make sure that your future is as successful as they can make it is impactful. It's invaluable, So thank you from all the students that needed that, thank you for being that. And thank you for sharing that moment with us. So
I can tell you from the teacher end of that, none of that was fake. That 40-minute conversation was probably the highlight of his week, if not his month, if he's
sure.
like me. And
God, he was cool.
The thing I noticed, especially as I started to do that, I teach at a Title I school.
Mm-hmm.
So for people that don't know what that is, it's essentially it's the classification if your population or a certain percentage of it falls under the federal poverty line. That's the school I teach at. And as I started to just kind of show up at these things, because like I said, that's what I decided I wanted to do. I realized how much that meant to these kids, because a lot of them, no one does that. It's not just the teachers. And to be fair, there's a lot of teachers at my school that do go to a lot of stuff, and that these kids really do feel loved about. I'm honestly not the only teacher doing that. I don't think I'm the best teacher in the school by any means, but their parents, not necessarily. I've mentioned volleyball a couple times because this is one kid that I just know she absolutely adores me. I don't know what I did, but she's really good at volleyball. Like right now, I think she's a senior. I believe she's signed with like Stanford or
Wow.
Yale, like an
Good for
Ivy
her.
League school to play for their volleyball team. Her parents don't go to her games that often.
Mm.
Her mom's like a lawyer, or her dad's like a doctor, or switched around. They're out of state a lot. As I went, I realized maybe one or two of them go to like 1 or 2 games a semester. So I just went to all the ones I could because I realized like, oh, this isn't just gratifying for me. They actually really appreciate this. And it just kind of started a cycle where like I do that, and then volleyball people end up in my class and they're excited for my class because they see that I go to these things.
Yeah.
And then I'm excited as I get to know them, and then I want to go see them do their thing, and it's just a cycle.
Little things like that can mean so much to them, because I think as a student, as a high school age kid, somebody just seeing them as like not quite an adult, but as a person. I think a lot of times when you're in high school, you get treated by so many people as a kid. You get treated as somebody that doesn't know what the fuck's going on. And so having an adult treat you like you do have a consciousness, you do have thoughts that matter, you do have emotions that are not just being a teenage kid being emotional, like that can be so impactful to just be seen and be heard and be cared about, not just on like a kid level, you know. Chandler, you grew up in Japan. And I just want you to why? First of all, why? Just tell us why.
Military kid.
Military dad. Okay, got it.
Military kid.
Gotcha. And so what age is?
Technically, you're supposed to move every 3 years. I ended up there. We had one tour. It was like 02 to 05. So that would have been like 7 to 10.
Okay, got it.
And then my dad got 2 tours in a row in my like middle and high school years. So I was there from like 7 to 10 years old. And then again from like 7th grade till I graduated.
Okay.
So by the time I was 18, like 9 or 10 of those years were in Japan.
Got it. And that's like a perfect age for you to fully remember everything about it. So tell us about this photo. Where is it? Like, I mean, you can share as specifically or vaguely as you want. But tell us what we're seeing right here.
I can be a little more specific here because anything in this area is pretty removed from like me now. This is the view from my bedroom. Okay. So I did grow up in Japan. I grew up in Okinawa, Japan.
Got it. Okay.
If you're imagining Japan, it's not in that main area. It's like down south. It's like their equivalent of like
I had to pull up a map, and I never knew that it's like in between Japan and Taiwan, like pretty off land from Japan. I didn't never know that. Like you have to zoom in to see it. It's small.
There's so much like World War II stuff there because it was such a strategic location because of its proximity to North Korea and China.
Okay.
So that was kind of the tension while we were there. It was like anytime North Korea started to kind of rumble a little bit, we were like 200 miles away from there. And we were like, yeah. Okay.
So what was the experience like just growing up there? Like, do you speak Japanese? Like, did you learn while you were there? Like, how did that go?
I used to. I found myself at college sometimes, if someone walked up to me and started speaking Japanese, it came back to me more than I thought I remembered. But off the top of my head, I don't think it's fair to say I'm fluent anymore.
Yeah, I used
to be like 2nd grader fluent. Okay. Like I could speak to you, but I would sound like a literal child.
Yeah,
like,
well, I know sometimes people can understand it but not speak it. Or like I had a roommate who grew up in a Spanish-speaking family, and he could not speak Spanish very well, but he could understand it completely fluently.
If I were to like go back to Japan, give me like a week to brush up on it, and I'll be okay. Okay. But like I can watch anime with the subtitles and not rely too heavily on the subtitles. I'm a
dubbed anime watcher, and I just want everybody in chat to know it. And if you have any feelings against it, I understand, but I have
no feelings against that at all.
I can't sit and watch. I have to listen because I'm almost always doing something else.
I thought I was a faster reader than I was because I'd think like, oh, I don't know Japanese that well. I'm just good at reading the subtitles. And then I tried to watch Squid Games with the subtitles. I was so lost. I was like, oh, I can't actually read because I actually can barely read.
Interesting.
This is true. I just understand more Japanese than I thought I did initially.
Interesting. Okay, so another question is just like living in Japan, would you find any big culture differences living there that you experienced that you can notably say, you know, like as opposed to like American culture?
Oh my gosh. Just for context, I graduated high school in 2014, in like April of 2014. in June of 2014, I moved to the American Deep South. And then in August of 2014, I went to school in Los Angeles.
Wow.
So it's about a 2-month time frame. I went from those three.
It's a lot of changes, a lot of culture changes.
All three were equally different.
Yeah.
The South and LA are just as different as like a completely different country.
Wow.
That's how wild
you were getting
was.
whiplashed all over the place. Okay.
I got there.
Tell us
like,
about
I
that.
don't know what to do. Oh my gosh. So I was also homeschooled in Japan. It was just different because even like beyond that, just being a military kid is a very different vibe. By the time I was in college, the longest I had ever held a friendship was 4 years. And it was those 4 years in college because you move every 3 years. I've never had like a childhood friend that I never had that consistency. And I don't look back on that and think like, oh man, if only I had that. Because as a kid, you don't know the difference. I don't know. I just thought that was normal. I'm like, oh, time to move again. But like in Japan, there's a few things that are different. I'm very visibly American. I guess would be a proper thing to say. I stuck out like a sore thumb. And kind of the stereotype over there is that Americans are loud and rude. And unfortunately, most of them go over there and prove it. The stereotype there isn't as like sleazy as I think it is other places. Like there's not as much of a stereotype of like, oh, the Americans are there. You know, they're kind of shicey people because 99% of the Americans over there are military. And not to say that the military is full of a bunch of saints, but you don't get a lot of people that'll like rob convenience stores in the military because they will get court-martialed.
I was going to say, it's not like you're just like freely out there, like living. You have somebody kind of looking over the top of you anyways, like watching. Okay. Yeah.
So like Americans, they're bold and brash, but they're disciplined.
Sure. Okay.
You know, they see us as disciplined because all of them look, you know, like they're in the military. Fun fact, one of the weirdest culture shock things for me was seeing men with longer hair.
Oh, interesting.
Like a grown man with like hair this long, even just this long, was like wild to me.
Yeah. Anything other than a hind tight.
Anything longer than that, I was like, this is weird. This is weird. Also, old people.
Oh, okay.
It didn't dawn on me. If you know, all the Americans.
These are all weird ones that I would not expect. Yeah.
Like I knew people in the military and their direct families.
Yeah.
People don't like go into the military and then bring their parents to their tour in Okinawa. So I get back and there's just old people just walking around. I'm like, where are they all coming from?
Wow, you guys really are still here? Good God.
This is something interesting. The oldest person I've met, not necessarily the oldest in age, because I've met someone that's 109. I've met someone that's 109.
Wow.
The like firstborn person I met was in 2002. In 2002, I went to a birthday party for someone that was turning 107. So they were born in 1895.
Wow.
I met someone that was like in their 40s and 50s during World War II.
Wow.
Like, and that's just normal. I used to be a lot more athletic than I am now. You know, esport coach.
As we all,
not regular sport coach. But I did it with my dad. My dad is super fit. He loved doing like Ironman triathlons, things like that. He would do half Ironmans with me. And I always thought like, oh man, I'm a wimp because I can't do the full things. But now I've come to America and I realized like, no, half Ironman, that's still a lot.
Wow.
Like for most people, that's a lot. I'm just, again, military. I have lost races on several occasions to 90-year-olds.
Yeah. No, I'm the same.
As like a physically fit, like 16, 17-year-old that had some endurance. Yeah,
you don't realize how in shape you are when you're like in high school than when you're no longer, when you get older and you try to do things that you did in high school.
You know, I'm worn out by like sitting up too straight for too long.
I'm under the impression that the general diet in Japan is overall much healthier. Just can you tell us about, I don't know how much food you were eating, because I know that if you were living on the base, you were probably still eating a lot of like American type foods. But did you like, you know, did you go out, did you explore? I mean, you're 7 to 10, right? So it's kind of like, I remember when I was 10, all I cared about is catching Pokemon and nothing else around me mattered. I did not care about other culture, like exploring other cultures. You know, I just wanted to get home to eat a cheeseburger. So I don't know.
When I was there from 7 to 10, I definitely recognized that it was different. Like I wasn't necessarily like, wow, I'm 7 years old. I can't wait to engross myself in the culture and learn something about humanity. But I knew, I understood we weren't in America. Right. I understood it was a very different country and we were guests there is how it was always presented to me. But definitely the second time we were there, so like junior high and high school, much more aware of things like that. But the food's an interesting thing. I didn't eat a ton of it because I was a very, very picky eater as a kid. But even the things I did eat, Okinawa's two biggest industries are tourism and agriculture, mostly sugarcane. They make a lot of sugarcane, and that's kind of the base of their junk food as opposed to grease.
Yeah,
So
no
you
high
can even
fructose
taste
corn
the
syrup.
difference. Yeah, there's none of that. You can taste the difference in like their potato chips and their sodas even. Like the things that are supposed to be junky are so astronomically healthier than the junk foods here. They're even healthier than like some things that are supposed to be healthy here. When we moved here to the deep south, I gained like 20 pounds.
It's all just fat. It's all high fructose corn syrup, just like greasy food. Yeah.
I didn't even eat more, like a larger quantity of junk food than I usually did because I was a teenager. Junk food was all I ate, but it was just so much more detrimental here. I was like, oh my gosh, everything is deep fried. I need to eat like a banana.
I had a good friend that was from Korea, and he was talking about the same thing. He's like, I moved to America. He's like, I actually tried to eat kind of healthy and gained like 50 pounds. And then he said that he had never had acne in his life. And when he moved to America, he's like, I don't take my shirt off because my back is just covered in it because it's just like all of the food that I'm eating. It's just destroying me. And he's like, I'm even trying a little bit. And it's like the stuff that I would be buying is just built different here. It's like made out of different ingredients. And it's like so hard for us to eat healthy here. And if you try, it's really fucking expensive to eat healthy. So you went back to Japan, I'm hearing. When did you go back?
So I lived there from like 7 to 10.
Okay.
And you move every 3 years. So it was 3 years there, 3 years in Virginia, and then back to Japan.
Okay.
And that's when we were there for 2 tours in a row. So we were there for 6 years.
Okay. Got it. And so you graduated high school in Japan. I'm understanding.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
I was homeschooled, but that's where I lived.
Right.
That's where
right.
the home was.
So I had a couple friends that were homeschooled. How many hours a day did you school?
By the time I was in high school, especially with the math stuff, because that's always just been something that's come naturally to me. It definitely got to the point that I was teaching myself stuff, but I mean, I still did pretty good. My ACT scores, I am highly dyslexic. My reading score was half of my other scores. My reading score brought my overall ACT down a lot. It was like a 16. All my other ACT scores were in the 30s. So I did I learned my stuff. As far as how much time it took, it really just depended on how much I was working on.
Sure.
It was a lot more fluid. Like if we were going on vacation, I would just work ahead so I wouldn't have to stress about it while I was gone. By my senior year, I was doing like 1 or 2 classes left. I think I just blazed through a pre-calculus textbook in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Just did the entire, that's all I did for like 3 weeks. And I just finished early. I finished like halfway through April. We were moving till June. I just goofed off for like 6 weeks after that.
It seems like most of my friends that were homeschooled, the actual schooling part, I mean, you don't have to deal with 30 kids in a classroom, so you can kind of like saturate it to the one kid. It seems like most of my friends that integrated into high school after being homeschooled were so far past any of us, but then socially, there was a lot of things they had to catch up on, good and bad, you know, like all of the things that you go through in public school. There's a lot of good socialization skills. You get a lot of bad socialization skills, but they are social skills nonetheless. So they did have to catch up there, but they already knew they were in the high classes. They already knew everything. Like they were geniuses.
Yeah. And that's the thing I think a lot of people don't realize. Like you could argue a big argument against homeschooling is like, why would you entrust yourself with something that like trained professionals are doing? If you're like at least a little bit competent in the content itself, like if you're fairly confident, you know a decent bit of high school knowledge, if you think it's right for your kid, there's a good chance you'll actually be better at it than that kid would do in a public school environment. Because as a professionally trained teacher, the professional training part isn't in the content knowledge. It's the ability to teach it to 30 kids at the same time.
Oh.
Having one kid to work on is easy mode, because guess what? If they have a question, you can just answer it.
Sure.
As opposed to having to figure out, oh, there's 30 different kids with 30 different questions. By the way, you have an hour. Go.
Yeah. I was the kid that would go in at lunch because I had one question that I had to hear the answer to. Like, I was not good at math. I was bad at math. I had parents that needed me to get good grades, but I was bad at math. So I was lucky that I had teachers when I was in school that would allow me to come in while they were eating their lunch to re-explain what they had explained 6 times, because I struggled. I could not get it. You know, it's funny. There was 2 math teachers. There was one math teacher that was universally liked. She was super cool. She was the cool teacher. When she taught me, I had no fucking idea what she was talking about. Then there was another teacher that was universally just like the douche. He was mean, like he was awful. When he explained things to me, I got him first try. So I had to decide, do I want to go talk to the cool teacher at lunch and not get it? Or do I want to go talk to the teacher that nobody likes and get it the first try?
Mental health or knowledge.
Exactly. I was like, do I want to be efficient or do I want to cry later? I don't know. We got to pick one.
I am pretty honest as a teacher. I'll tell my kids, I'm like, look, if you're one of those kids that just needs a strict schedule and a strict regimen, you're probably not going to like me that much because I am not that guy. From a grading perspective, I definitely grade my classes with kids like you in mind, because I know for a fact there's a lot of kids that have good grades, that are supposed to have good grades, that are not very good at math. All my daily work is daily grade, is participation graded. If you do it, you're getting full credit. My tests and quizzes in the upper classes are all open notes. So if you're like someone like you and you genuinely try, you're probably not going to get an A, like the kids that math is very much their thing. But I do that so it doesn't tank your GPA as much as it could for some of those kids.
Sure.
Because sometimes you're like a straight A student and then you get like a C in math, and it can be pretty detrimental, not just to your GPA, but your mental health. But if you can skirt by with like an A- or a B+.
Yeah, C's were fine. My parents took C's. They knew C's in math. We're happy with that. Like science, writing, all the literature, arts, those kinds of things. Like I didn't even have to try, but like the maths, there were some sciences that were a little more mathy. C's were fine. They were like, okay, we'll take those. Honestly, even a D is like, we don't want that. Like we want you to get it better, but like for the love of God.
We understand.
Okay.
That's good.
So you were in Japan when you got lost in the woods. And so what age were you, first off?
You want to know the crazy thing?
Yeah.
I went missing the day before my 17th birthday.
Okay, got it. So you're old enough that you're not like a little tyke just like walking into the woods.
No. I was competent.
Okay, start it from the beginning. Where were you, as specific or vague as you want to tell? Why were you there? How did it happen?
Oh, this is the story.
I'm sure you've told this story many times. I don't think I need to hold your hand through this one.
Oh no, I got this. So it's the day before my 17th birthday. A few friends of mine from like the church I went to, and like the youth pastor that was there, they used to do a lot of stuff at this place called Aha Falls. Aha Falls is a place up north in Okinawa. It was a bit of a drive, but for context, Okinawa is 50 miles long. It is 2 miles wide at its widest point.
Wow.
So the majority of the island, it's 50 miles long. It's a mile wide. I've biked the perimeter in a day and a half.
Okay.
It's not a very big island.
Okay.
It's not a big island at all. It's basically this waterfall that's connected to like a river, and the waterfall is super cool because it's this little swimming hole, but it's so deep you can just like run and jump off the waterfall like in a movie. There's a big old rope swing. It's a good time. And they're like, hey, do you want to come with us? We're gonna go do a river hike, and then we'll end up at the falls and we'll spend the day there, and it'll be a good time. And I'm like, yes, that sounds cool. We go there. When I heard river hike, I thought, okay, we're going to follow the river because nature is pretty and we're going to get to the waterfall. And these guys like buckle up and they just jump into the river and they're going to like ride it down. And I'm like, wait, I did not get the memo on this. They're like, what? Just jump in. It's whatever. I'm like, no, I got stuff in my backpack. I can't get wet. And they're like, it's whatever. I'm like, no. And I remember the exact thing. It was a book. It was a book I had to read from school. But it was my mom's book. It wasn't one that I like got from the library. It was my mom's book. And I was like, I can't get my mom's book wet. I'm supposed to take good care of other people's things. And they're like, just whatever. I'm like, I'll follow along the side. It'll be fine. And they're like, okay. And they start floating down. And I'm keeping decent pace for a while. And they get a little more ahead. And I'm like, this is fine. And then they get a little more ahead. I'm like, this is probably still fine. This is probably like 8 o'clock in the morning. It's so early. I'm still kind of waking up. I'm like, this is fine. The brush started to get a little thicker, so I'm kind of like pushing through because it's not like there's a beach I can just walk across. I'm like plowing my own trail, trying to keep sight on everyone. And then they're pretty far, and I'm like, it's fine. It's a straight line, whatever. And I keep going, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to put my head down and focus on speed so I can catch up. And I do that for like 5 minutes. I'm like, surely I'm closer now. And I look up, and I do not see them at all. And I'm still kind of like, it's a one-way thing. They're following it to the falls. It's a straight line. If I don't lose the river, it's whatever. So I keep trekking. About 20 minutes later, it forks in 3 different directions.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, shit, this is not good. Okay. So I start kind of rationalizing it in my mind. I'm like, okay, I could pick one and go down that way and see where it goes. And if it doesn't end up at the falls, I could just come around and pick a different direction. But that'll take a long time. Who knows how long these are? It could take a couple hours. And I could not find them until they've already left. And I was like, and if they get back to the car and I'm still not there, then that's pretty legit. Like at that point, I'm legit lost. Like at this point, I'm not legit lost yet. I'm just a little behind at a fork in a road. So my genius plan is like, you know what? I'm just going to follow the river backward and I'm going to find the car. Because sure, I miss out on the falls, but if I'm just at the car waiting for them, they all left the phones in the car because they're not waterproof, and they knew they were jumping in the frickin' river. They didn't tell me that, so I still had my phone. No service, unfortunately. But I was like, if I'm at the car waiting for them, that doesn't really count as lost. That's like a slightly interesting story, but I wasn't even lost. Whatever. We didn't park like at a designated parking spot. Like there wasn't a trail leading to where we got. We just parked on the side of the road and just winged it. And I was like, I could probably figure out where the car is. I could not figure out where the car is. I'm like, okay, not great. It's maybe 1 or 2 p.m. at this time. I've been wandering around for like 6 hours. I'm like, okay, this is definitely bad, but I'm still only like kind of lost. I'm like, okay, this isn't a big island. I was a Boy Scout. When they teach you about survival, it's like, okay, if you're lost, you need to stay in one spot so they know where you are, so they don't have too big of a search area to find. But it's a 50-mile island. It's 1.5 miles wide. I'm like, okay, there's a coastal highway that goes around the whole thing. I'm like, okay, if I pick a direction and just walk, I'm gonna find a highway. So now I'm rationalizing. I'm like, okay, if I can get to a highway, there will be service for my phone. And if there's service for my phone, I can call someone. As long as I do that before it gets dark, I'm still not really like legit lost, so it's fine. So I'm kind of trying to like find my way through the jungle. Like it's not even the woods. Like I can show you pictures. It is a jungle. Like it is a humid tropical jungle with dangerous animals in there. But I'm just like, as long as it's not dark, I'm not even lost. It doesn't count. So I'm looking around. I find a trail and there's a little trap on it. And I know what this is because there's, what's the word? Not endangered species, invasive. There's invasive species, mongoose. They were brought here to fight the poisonous snakes, but now there's too many of both and it's a whole big problem. But it was a mongoose trap. I thought, okay, this is a farmer's. This is like the perimeter of their farm. This trail must be. And this is to keep the mongoose out. Cool. This is a real trail. Trails lead to roads. I just got to pick which direction to go. And I could go left and I could go right. And I'm like, it's probably a big loop. I tried not to freak out about it too much, but I decided to go to the right. It's probably like 4 or 5 p.m. at this point. So I thought, okay, I got like 3 hours to get to civilization and make a phone call before it gets dark. Otherwise, it's legit, right? So I just start walking on this trail and I'm like, now, obviously, I'm not actually lost, but just in case, maybe I should be careful about my water because I have like a bottle of water and like a little lunch I packed. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't eat and drink that right now. That just seems like a smart thing to do. I'm like, I'm not lost, but it's probably a smart thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I keep walking and it gets to like 2 hours later. I'm still on this trail and I'm starting to get a little discouraged. The sun's starting to go down and I'm like, okay, it's still a trail. No one would just make a trail that's just a big loop connected to nothing. I'm gonna find something. And then I realized like, but what if there's a dead end? That's something that would make sense. It could just be a one-way trail and I could have just spent 2 hours going to the complete wrong direction. And I'm like, no, we're not gonna worry about that because I'm not even lost. About a half hour goes by, probably like 20, 30 minutes before the sun is properly down. And I'm like, okay, I would pick up the pace a little bit. Surely we gotta be close, right? And I pick up the pace and like 5 or 10 minutes later, it goes up a very steep hill. And I have to like climb up the hill, but it's very tricky because it's right on the edge of like a cliff. It goes up this hill. And there's even like an arrow pointing to it. It's very steep. There's a lot of sharp rocks at the bottom, like in the Emperor's New Groove. And I'm like, well, I don't really have a lot of options, so I'm not going to think about it too much. So I just start kind of like shimmying out and climbing up. It's maybe like 15 feet that I got to clear. And I'm just climbing up, trying not to think of the fact that I'm literally like scaling a cliffside. And my hand slips and I fall and my arms like flail out because I'm like, oh no, this is bad. And I kid you not, there was like a tree growing out of the side of the cliff and it like hooks my arm and it like, and it's like 10 feet above where like the river with the sharp rocks are. And that was the moment I looked down and I looked at the tree and I looked up and it was like, okay, maybe this is actually
some shit right now.
That was the moment that like we're not even real. That went away. It was like, okay, this is bad.
Are you panicking there or are you just like, do you immediately go into like survival mode?
It wasn't even a panic. It was like a,
oh, okay.
I should have died there, huh? It was very matter of fact, like,
well, like very sobering.
But I did think like, well, now instead of 10 feet to climb, I've got like 15 or 20. I was like, I better start doing this before I get too scared to move. So I just kept going back up and I did get to the top of that. And I'm like, yes, awesome. Keep going on this trail. I'm picking up the pace. 5 minutes later, dead end.
Okay.
It's a dead end on the trail. And I'm like, oh no. Because at this point, the sun's down. It's starting to get dark.
Gone.
I'm like, oh.
To pause you real quick, what kind of temperature, like I want to know environment, like when the sun goes down, is it cold or the sun goes down still very warm?
Summers there get into the hundreds pretty consistently.
Okay.
It's similar to
very humid too.
Very humid heat. to the point that like I went to LA and my skin kept drying out.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
That's how humid.
Got it.
Nights cool off to like the 80s.
Yeah.
So I figured I would be fine. Once the survival mode kicked in, I knew that as far as the night goes, biggest issue is hypothermia. Because if it rains, I'll get too cold.
Hypothermia kicks in way warmer than most people think.
Public service announcement, hypothermia kicks in way warmer than most people think. And yes, the lengths that I'm about to explain that I went to were 100% worth it. And if not for it, I probably would have died. I'm saying this now so chat doesn't flame me for what happens in like 5-10 minutes. Sun's going down. I'm like, okay. I turn around. Okay, so it is a dead end trail and the sun's going down. So this is real now. I turn around and I just start running. Literally the longest I've ran in my life without stopping. I can usually barely squeeze through a 5K without having to stop and walk at this point in my life. And in the span of like 30 minutes, when it went from like kind of dark to like, okay, it is actually dark, I can't see, I actually managed to get back to the spot that I started at. So I was able to run about like 2 or 3 hours of walking in like 30 minutes. I just like, that was the survival instincts moment right there.
Yeah, the adrenaline is just pumping.
Yeah, and I recognize it because I like cleared an area of like leaves and stuff for me to like sit down for a minute and try to decide like which way I wanted to go. I was like, oh, this is where I was. So I just kept going. I kept running in that direction. Like 5 or 10 minutes later, I see it kind of splits off. And it's very dark, but I see a big kind of like shadowy thing in the distance. I'm like, okay, it's dark. I need to start, as much as I hate it, I got to start thinking about what I'm going to do tonight because this is a pressing issue because I can't see anymore. If I can't see anymore, I can't safely walk. We saw how steep that cliff is. I don't want to trip and fall and die. So I see this thing and I go up to it and my phone is out of service, but I can use the flashlight. I have the flashlight on my phone and I realize it's a dam. It's a concrete dam from when the river used to run through that area. But it hadn't been used in so long. It was so overgrown. I was actually able to use the vines that had like overgrown on the dam to climb up it and get on top of it. So I essentially found this like 30-foot concrete slab that I was able to climb up and get on top of. And I had like a flat concrete area above the trees, above dangerous animals. And I was like, okay, not the worst spot. All right, pretty good here. And then I see, I don't know how dams work. It looks like a filtration area. Like a place where they like filter out a bunch of junk. It didn't have a roof, but there was a little ladder that could go down to it. It was still concrete. And I could tell that there were some cleaner areas, but just big piles of like poop and dead fish and whatever that was there. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go down and just kind of sleep in the middle there. Whatever, because then you got 4 walls. That's even better. We got a floor. We went to 4 walls. I'm like, I am so bougie right now as far as jungle survival goes.
Glamping.
We're cruising. So I lay there. I looked at my food and water. And I kind of looked at it thinking, okay, I split it up into like 3 separate days. So I had 3 days worth of food and 4 days worth of water by my like measurements and stuff. And I ate my first day's thing because I don't want to get like too dehydrated to be able to think tomorrow. So I did that. And I lied down and I just kind of used my backpack as a pillow. And I just looked up and there's not like any cities in Okinawa except like really down south. So you can see the night sky. Like it's super pretty. I remember lying there like looking up at that and thinking and remembering like, huh. My birthday's tomorrow. This is not how I thought this was going to go. Huh.
Wow.
How you like that? And I fell asleep.
Wow.
And then a couple hours later, I wake up. It starts raining.
Oh.
That was the foreshadowing with the hypothermia thing. And it drizzles for a little bit. And I know Okinawa, after like a few minutes of drizzling, it will start downpouring. So I look around and I'm in this big thing and I climb up to the top and I'm trying to see if there are any trees that like overshadow the area that I could stay under and stay dry because I know if I get too wet, hypothermia, big trouble, right? We're doing good. I found something above the tree line. I could be visible. I have food for a couple days. We're chilling, but not if we have rain. So I go up and I'm looking for something like that and there's nothing. And I go back into my little thing. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And it dawns on me what I have to do. And I look up from my spot, my nice clean spot in the middle. And I look at one of those massive piles of shit and dead fish.
Oh, no.
And I know what has to happen. So I just kind of iglooed myself. It had been raining for a few minutes at this point, so it was nice and soggy. And initially, I was, back to that denial. I'm like, maybe it's just dirt. But the rain brought out the smell. I'm like, it's not dirt. So I just kind of like put my feet in and I just like squish. Like I laid like flat in there. It was pretty slanted. So my head was poking out and I went in and I just kind of rested my head on it. And then I put my backpack above my head. So like I could still get the air and stuff, but it would block the rain. And I remember I just lay there. It was cozy.
It's like that scene in Star Wars when he cuts open the. Yeah.
Very much like that. And I remember as I like fell asleep in that position, I was like thankful. I was like, oh cool, hypothermia is not gonna kill me. But like
At what cost?
I let out like a little sigh of like just like a very way of like, I'm sleeping in a big old pile of poop tonight.
Yeah, how's the book, by the way, at this point? How's the book?
The book was fine.
Okay.
I think she still has it.
Okay.
Probably like next time I'm at the house, I can find the book. Because it's in the back. It's in the backpack. The backpack's like waterproof, military, all that jazz.
Okay, so you're iglooed in poop. What happens next?
I fall back asleep. I wake up. It's not raining anymore. I wake up because the sun like right through a slit in the backpack is in my eye. And I remember just kind of like wiggling one of my arms out and like moving the thing. And I remember the first thing I did is I looked up and I looked around and I went, happy birthday to me. And I like pushed myself out of the thing. Behind the well on the other side, there was still like a very shallow, maybe like 2 or 3 feet of water that had just been sitting there for a while. I'm like, this is probably gross. It's not as gross as poop. So I get in there and try to like wash my clothes off and get as much off of me as possible. Because the sun's up. It's hot enough. I know I'm going to dry. Don't got to worry about hyper. So then I think, okay, I'm going to try this whole like sit and wait thing. That's what you're supposed to do when you're lost. So I sit on top of that dam for like 3 or 4 hours. It gets to maybe 10 or 11 a.m. and I got nothing. I'm yelling, my voice is getting tired, and I realize like, okay, well, I can do something. And I make like a little SOS. I had a pocket knife with me. So I climbed back down into the jungle area, cut off a bunch of branches of trees, and made this little SOS that goes across the top of the gray thing. And after like an hour of that, I realized like, this is a green sign on a gray slab in a green jungle. I don't know about this one, Chief. And I didn't hear anything for a while. At about noon, I heard helicopters. Thing about living in Japan, especially with all the military aircraft, once you're there for like a year, you don't just hear helicopters and airplanes. You can tell exactly what's in the air by the engine sound.
Oh, okay.
So I could tell the difference between a C4, a C5, a CH-46, an Apache, and a Huey. I knew exactly what it was. And at this time, my dad, yes, military kid, dad was a Marine. He was pretty high ranking. He was a commanding officer at this point. He was a commanding officer of a squadron of like 600 plus people. And I hear the helicopters, and I know for a fact it's the helicopters from his squadron. So I'm like, okay, that's for me. And I think they're not going to see me on this concrete slab. It's on a trail. If I need to come back, I can come back. But right now, I think the best move is to just pack up my stuff, grab my backpack, basically, go down the dam and just keep going and let's see what happens. I go down and I keep walking. And in less than like 30 minutes, the trail hits a road. It's like split down the middle from like an earthquake or something because earthquakes, they were insane. So I could tell it wasn't in commission anymore, but I'm like, hey, trail to a road that once exists. This is going to connect to a road that does exist. Like 20 minutes later, it intersects the actual main road that we rode on to get up there. So part of me is like, yeah, we freaking made it. The other part of me is like, why didn't I just go left?
I was going to say, so how far is this from where you slept?
Less than an hour.
Okay. Okay.
If basically when I found that, I found that trail at like 3 or 4 p.m. If I had went left, I would have found civilization before like 5 or 6.
Okay.
I'm a little pissed about it, but it is what it is. I'm walking down that road and I have 1,000 yen in my pocket. It's like $10. I have like a $10 in my pocket. And I'm like, I'm just going to wait for a car to come by. And a car come by and I like waved them down. My phone was dead at this point because I used it for the light. But I had like an emergency contact card that my mom was on and like a few other people.
Oh, that's great.
And I had that, and I had like my $10, and I essentially said in the best Japanese I could pull up, I was like, hey, can I use your phone to make a call? I'm lost. I'll give you $10. And they're like, sure, but you just need to make a call. You can keep your money, dude. And I was like, oh, cool, thanks. I just put it back. And I was like, oh, $10 for me.
Wow.
But I did that. So I just got the stranger's phone, and I called my mom, but it was from a strange number. So she answered, she's like, what? I'm like, Mom? And she goes, Chandler?
Oh.
Because she's just, for her, she's just answering a random number. And I'm like, hey, Mom. And she's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Hello?
So
and
she obviously knows you're lost. Like what was her?
At this point,
did she start crying? Like you knowing your mom, what was it? You know what I mean?
At that point, she was just surprised. I could tell, like now looking back, I know for a fact, because I'll get to this in a second. I didn't know at this point, but she was part of and knew the extent of the search and rescue effort. And then partway through that, just tried to manage logistics of things on day 1 of a search and rescue, which nobody ever has high hopes for. And in this specific situation, even fewer people have high hopes for, which I'll explain in a second. And then imagine you're in that situation, and then just out of nowhere, you get what you expect to be like a telemarketer on your phone, and it's the missing son you're looking for. Just like, hey, Mom, can you come get me?
Mom, can you come pick me up? I'm scared.
And she's like, well, I know you're lost. Jeez, where are you?
Wow. Okay, so what you're saying kind of is she was totally expecting your body to be pulled out of the jungle and not get a call from you.
Those people gave me a ride back to this like nature area, and I tell them, I'm like, okay, this is where I'm at. You can come get me. He's like, okay, we're on our way. And then like 2 helicopters and like 5 police cars roll up, and I was like, ooh, I'm in trouble.
Oh, I'm so grounded.
Like, I'm a big deal.
That's funny. The first thing you think of is I'm in trouble.
I was like, oh, this is a big deal.
Don't take away my video games.
Really, within less than 24 hours, it went from I'm not even like technically really lost to there are 2 helicopters right above me that are here for me.
Wow.
This is a big deal. But I get back, and there's like 70 to 100 Marines from my dad's unit. There's the local police. There's the military police. There's local search and rescue. And there's actually a specialty dive team from the Philippines that flew in to comb the waters. And this is something that I haven't really shared yet. People have gone missing in this area before. Until this incident, everyone that went missing in the area, they found a body because of, like I explained earlier, the really steep cliffs. And most of the time when someone goes missing there, it's someone like in the military or whatever, but they're usually drunk, right? Because people go there, they drink, they swim around, and they slip off something and they die. So it was weird to come back to the search and rescue thing, but like there was obviously excitement that I was there, but there was genuine shock that I was alive, much less that I found them instead of them finding me. There was a newspaper that reported on it that morning, just fully assuming that I was dead.
Wow.
Like it wasn't even like, oh, this is a developing story. It's like,
he's fucked.
Yep, he's dead. You know, we've had 17 missing in the last 5 years, and of those 17, 16 died. The one that survived was a Navy freaking SEAL. So the 17-year-old, he's a goner. Also, that one that survived, he wasn't even out overnight. It was like a 6-hour missing situation, and he came back out. Like I said, not a real. That's what I was going for, right? But no, they were like this 17-year-old, like he's a goner. And I look back at that article every now and then, and it's so surreal because there's comments from these random people like commenting on the article, like, oh my gosh, it's so tragic to see like a young life lost and stuff. And that's about me.
You're like, hello, I am here.
Condolences.
Wow.
It's weird.
That is very weird.
It's on Flickr. For a while, I've thought about making a Flickr account. I don't know if Flickr like notifies when someone comments like Facebook used to do, but just going on there and commenting like, hey, this article's about me. I am very much still alive.
What's up?
I survived this situation and no one told anybody. So.
Oh my God. Okay. I have this picture that I want to pull up. I have 2 pictures. This first one, I want to show everybody. Here is a picture of you, your mom on the left, it's funny. Her smile is not like I just found my son lost in the jungle. She kind of just looks like you guys are out shopping. You know, she's having a nice
like
day.
This freaking kid. Of course.
She's like, oh my goodness, what a joker. Okay. So you're obviously wet. Like you can kind of see your pants are like a little bit dirty. You look pretty clean.
That's
poop.
You
know, you bathed. Yeah, got some poop on your pants there. I mean, it's funny. Everybody looks like they're happy, which I'm sure that they were.
Happy. Yeah. I was like, cool, I get to sleep in a bed tonight. Let's go.
Okay, so
these guys are trying to ask me, they're like, are you hurt? Are you injured? What happened? They're like the debrief team. These are just like search and rescue people. And I was like, I'm just chilling.
Yeah.
They're like, who found you? I'm like, nobody. I'm here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. This is a great picture. This is the team. Let me see if I can zoom in a tiny bit. This is the team. Is this everybody or how many? Like, what is this?
This is like 10% of the team because 90% of the team was combing the waters for a body.
Oh, man.
They went ahead and took this picture because the local, like the fire department said they had to get back. You know, I was okay. They had to be ready if there was another thing. So they were like, can we get a picture before,
the funniest part is how many people got sent out just for you to emerge from the jungle and make a cell phone call. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Like, be like, I'm good.
Yeah, it's like, no, I got this. Wow, that's amazing. Is your dad in this photo?
Forces. I don't think so.
No,
that was a pretty dramatic thing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know the survival rate of the area until I got out. And when I was shared this information, it was paired with your dad will be here soon. He's with the dive team from the Philippines looking for him.
Wow, you're wearing toe shoes in this photo.
Oh.
You're wearing toe shoes in this photo. They're very popular around that time.
I am. I expected to walk through mud and stuff. I guess I didn't remember the toe shoes.
Were your feet sore afterwards, or do you think the toe shoes contributed to being able to find your way out of the jungle? Perhaps, maybe.
I think the toe shoes are the only reason I'm still alive.
Okay, there you have it. Okay, so I have some follow-up questions that I'm sure everybody's chomping at the bit. Did you get grounded?
No.
Didn't get grounded. Was there any repercussions?
We're just glad you're alive.
Is there any repercussions at all?
No. Like, once I made it clear that, like, look, this wasn't intentional. This wasn't me just goofing off. It wasn't me, like, being negligent and getting lost. I had walked this river before. I'd never gone that far up. I had every reason to believe that I was just following a straight line. And then I did everything. I tried to get back to the car. I tried to get back to the car. Then I just tried to get to any road. And then I didn't throw in the towel about spending the night in the jungle until literally it was the last possible opportunity. Yeah, I think they were considering it, but then I think they're like, you know what? I think we're just glad you're alive. We'll take that.
Do you remember what the book was? Would any of us know? I'd be curious. You should find out and let us know if you can't remember.
It was Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Uncle Tom's Cabin.
It was Uncle Tom's Cabin.
What a book. Wow.
That's a heavy one.
Another question. Did you go home immediately after, or did they take you to the hospital just to make sure?
They wanted to take me to the hospital. The EMT team on site basically checked me for shock. And then they turned to the police, and my parents are they all thought I was in shock because I was being so nonchalant. Yeah. And they were basically like, no, he's not in shock. He just actually is okay. And they're all like, well, dang. Okay.
Interesting. And then
they asked me eventually, they're like, do you want to go home or do you just want to go to the hospital? And
I'm going to Chili's.
I just went home. I had a scratch on my leg from when I down a cliff. But I just went home. I took a shower.
Yeah. Oh, I bet that was the best shower of your life.
Yeah. I got out. A bunch of my friends texted me. They're like, wait, what happened? And then the ones that were on that trip, I got kind of the story from them.
Oh man, I bet they were freaking out.
Yeah, apparently they didn't notice I was gone until pretty late.
Well, when you're that age too, you're like, nah, he's fine. He'll just go back to the car. You don't really think about how easily it is to die, basically. They got
back to the car. They expected me to be back at the car. They got back to the car as the sun was setting. And that's when they realized I was gone. And that's when the rescue effort started. So the rescue effort started as I was already fastly approaching the dam I was going to sleep in.
Wow. Okay. And then I guess here's another one that I would guess is a no. Afterwards, did you experience any kind of PTSD, like anything like that, any symptoms afterwards, anything like that?
Not immediately. I never had Vietnam flashbacks or anything like that, or bad dreams or anything.
Yeah, because it is traumatic.
There is some trauma.
Yeah, there's definitely trauma. I mean, you go through anything stressful, you have long-lasting, trauma from that, even if you didn't. And I'm the same. If I went through something like that, I'd be making jokes right after. I'd be stuff like that. Yeah, that's totally how I would deal with it too. That is an incredible story. I'm glad I've got to hear it, especially in this setting, because it was great. I'm obviously glad that you're okay. What a fucking story.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm okay too.
I'm glad you're okay too. People in chat were saying oh, did he die? He didn't die, and everybody was like, spoilers. Okay, so to finish this amazing interview, I have a little game that we can play. Like you may or may not know, I tried to cater. And basically ours is pretty easy. I just pulled a couple of survival tips off of the internet, and I know that you did survive, but I'm just curious how well maybe you know how to survive. So I've got a couple survival questions. The first question is kind of a softball. A person can survive without water for A, 3 to 5 days, B, 4 to 6 days, C, 6 to 7 days, or D, a week.
I'm assuming the answer is 3 to 5 days, but I'm pretty sure it's a pretty hard 3 days.
Okay, it's 3 to 5 days. Yeah, so you're right with that one. 3 to 5 days.
Maybe there's new information, but all the rest of those are way
new
too
water
long.
just dropped. Water DLC just dropped. This one, a person can survive without food for A, 2 weeks, B, 30 days, C, 60 days, or D, 7 to 10 days.
It's either 30 or 60. You can go a while without food.
It's always longer than I think.
60 sounds really long. 30 sounds a little short. You know what? The water thing was longer than I expected. I'm going to go with 60.
It's 30 days.
It's 30?
30
really?
days,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, this one's kind of a weird one. I'd be surprised if you know the answer to this one.
What?
If you add this number to the number of chirps a cricket makes in 15 seconds, you can determine the approximate temperature. A, 15, B, 52, C, 20, or D, 37.
Chirps per minute?
Yeah, if you add the number, whatever the number is, to the chirps of a cricket in 15 seconds.
Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that if you're adding to it, then obviously more means it's getting hotter, right?
Yeah.
So the reasonable, but it's only 15 seconds. So if it's only 15 seconds, my gut tells me 50, because that would tell me 0 is like 50 degrees or below. But I don't really see a cricket chirping more than like 15 or 20 times, maybe double, maybe like 30 times in 15 seconds, like 2 per second. But honestly, 32 sounds good too, because then how do you tell the temperature if it's lighter than that? You know what? I'm gonna assume. I'm gonna make some. I do not know, honestly. This is just like trying to do some deductive reasoning.
You're going math teacher right now.
Yeah. I'm gonna assume this is a technique specifically for hot weather, so it wouldn't necessarily be effective at lower temperatures, and therefore you're not missing out by like starting at the 20. The fact that it's only 15 seconds makes me think it's a pretty high number with a small margin for error. I'm gonna go with the 50.
It's 37.
Oh, it was one of those two.
Yeah.
I knew it was gonna be one of those two.
I don't know. I was not following the math,
good.
but it's, the math checked out to me. It wasn't right, but it checked out. This is one that you should probably really pay attention to. Okay. The moment you realize you are lost, you should stop, STOP, and this stands for A, stop, think, observe, protect. B, sit, think, observe, plan. C, survive, tactic, optical planning. Or D, start thinking and observe the possibilities.
Ooh, I think it's stop thinking and observe your possibilities. Because I know the general vibe, kind of like I said, stop. If you're lost in an area like California or whatever, where you can wander in a straight line for 50 miles and not hit civilization, you want to stay in the same spot so that there's not too big of a search radius looking for you. But in general, I think, stopping, trying to clear your head of the fact that, you're freaking out, you're lost, you got to calm your head down so you can make better decisions. You got to figure out what opportunities are possible. I'm going to go with that last one.
So it's actually 2, sit, think, observe, plan.
Sit, think, observe, plan. That's basically the same as
it's kind of, yeah, it is. This one's a little grungy, but Sandy's game in the last episode, the whole game was grungy. So what bodily fluid can be used to catch fish? A, spit, B, pee, C, baby gravy, or D, blood?
I don't know this one. I'm gonna have to use the math brain again.
Okay.
I'm thinking pee is not one of them, because why? Why would anything like really smells like piss over there? Let's go check it out.
I would say the same thing to any of these, but sure, yeah.
Any of these, sure. Okay, the two in my mind is either the baby gravy or the blood, because predatory fish like sharks and stuff, they can smell blood from a while and they will go check it out. Maybe like if you could, as long as you can safely stay out of the water, put some blood in the water, it might attract something you could spear it. Or maybe like the baby gravy is close enough to, I don't know, fishy fluids.
Sure.
That, you get the horny, lonely fish in the air. They're like, what's going on over there? And they swim that way. I gotta pick one though. Blood. I'm gonna go with my gut.
So this may be, I can't confirm or deny that blood would do it now that you mention it, but the right answer was actually spit. For multiple websites, They said spit. Yeah. They said take a shirt, kind of make it into a net, put a bunch of spit in the water, and then you might have fish come to eat the spit. It's the easiest one to harvest. So, I mean, whatever. There you go. That's science, bitch.
What if the scientists they're like, okay, we're working on survival techniques. We got to discover something. What if they discovered that baby gravy actually is super effective?
Yeah, you just get a bunch of scientists jerking off next to the riverside.
Yeah. But
it's
what if
science.
they took a pack? What if they took a pack to just never tell anyone? They're like, this is not okay.
They're like, so the tests were negative, but we're not going to go back to the science lab until we did that. Okay, so this one, the UET or Universal Edibility Test includes doing this to see if a food is indeed edible? A, burning food to see if it's edible. B, eating food to see if it's edible. C, smelling food to see if it's edible. Or D, cooking food and using the water on a plant to see if it's edible.
And only one of these is true.
Yeah, to my knowledge.
I'm gonna nix the plant thing because in a survival situation, if you like find some berries, are you gonna boil berries, like plant a seed, water it, and then just sit there for like 3 weeks to wait and see if it grows or something? Or like, I put some berry juice on the tree, let's see if it grows better. That sounds too slow. There's no way that's the real one. Now that I say it, that's probably the real one. Okay. Eating. I'm torn on the eating because that sounds like some redundant BS an article would actually write. It also sounds 100% like something you would add to the options. Burning, I don't know about that because I feel like, what if you have like a head of lettuce and you're like, I wonder if this is edible, and you light it fire and it's just gone.
Yeah,
you're like,
well, it was edible.
I guess it was edible. I know there's things that are bad for you that are totally odorless, but I gotta go with smell. That is the
right one. That's the right one.
Let's freaking go.
Yeah, the article said
that made sense.
It said that most things that don't want you to eat them make you not want to eat them on any level possible. Okay, the last one. To send an SOS signal, you would send A, 3 quick beeps followed by 3 long beeps, and then another 3 quick. Yeah, I feel like you would know this one. Do I even need to read the other ones? 3 long, 3 quick, 3 long, 2 short, 1 long, 2 short, 1 short, 3 long, 1 short.
I'm pretty sure it's 3 long, 3 short, 3 long.
Yeah, you're right. Which it's funny because I feel like the military background is probably why you know that, right?
Well, I know that that's SOS, and either this is the reason SOS is the emergency signal, or this is what they decided when they were doing Morse code. They did that so it'd be easy to remember. Like there are Morse code things that alternate between the two, or some are only 2, some are only 1.
Yeah, like dear God, help me, I'm stuck in the jungle. I only have a little bit of water. I'm covered in poo. Might be a little bit too long to send in Morse code.
I'm sleeping in a poop igloo, but like 3 long, 3 short, 3 long is easy to remember.
Yeah, that is
like
that's
911.
Yeah, exactly. 911. That's good. Chandler, thank you for being here. You are officially through the witching hour. We are back into the next day. Your stories are incredible. Thank you for finally coming on and telling not just me, but everybody the jungle story and many of the other stories. It was phenomenal. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Of course. Thank you.
Absolutely loved being here. Anything you do, I'd love to be on. Whatever.
I love that. I love that.
Send me a DM, I'll do it.